that microphones are switched off when not in use. Before we proceed with the substantive business of this meeting, I would like to take the opportunity today for Cabinet to reflect on the momentous national events of the past few weeks, following the sad passing of Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II on 8th of September, and the proclamation of His Majesty King Charles's accession to the throne on Saturday, the 10th of September. Quite properly, the chairman of the council in 2 hours' time will give all members of the council the opportunity to mark Her Majesty's passing and will give a tribute to the late Queen. But given that this meeting is taking place first, may I invite you to join me in a minute's silence in memory of Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. I would also like to give Cabinet the opportunity to pay our respects to former Whittlesea councillor Ralph Butcher, who recently passed away. Ralph was a member of council and of this Cabinet for many years. Again, the chairman of the council will give a tribute to Ralph at the full council meeting in 2 hours' time. But may I invite you to join me in a minute's silence in memory of Ralph Butcher, please. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Agenda item 1, apologies for absence. Would member services please report any apologies for absence?
Yes, thank you. We've had apologies from Councillor Count and Councillor Mrs. Laws. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much. Agenda item 2 are the previous minutes. We are being asked to approve the public minutes, which are on pages 3 to 10 of the agenda pack, as being a correct record of the meeting, which took place on the 5th of September 2022. May I ask any member who does not agree with the minutes to indicate that now, please? I see no objections to the proposal to approve the minutes as a correct record of the meeting, so they are now agreed. Agenda item 3, there are no urgent items for consideration today. Agenda item 4 is to receive any declarations of interest under the local code of conduct or any interest under the code of conduct on planning matters in respect of any items to be discussed at this meeting. If you have anything to declare, please can you inform the meeting now? No hands are raised, thank you. If anything occurs to any member during the course of the meeting that they have a declaration that they need to make, would you please make it as quickly as possible? Thank you. Agenda item 5 is the Fenland Walking, Cycling and Mobility Aid Strategy. Since the publication of the agenda, revised versions of the policy and Appendix 4 have now been produced. The changes have been highlighted and 2 additional pages have been circulated to members of the Cabinet and they've been published online. May I therefore first have your agreement to these alterations so that they can then become the substantive documents for debate. Are members agreeable? Yes, all agreeable. Thank you very much indeed. I will now ask Councillor Seaton to propose the report.
Thank you, Chairman. Cabinet members will recall that in September 2021, Cabinet approved and adopted version 1 of the Fenland Walking, Cycling and Mobility Aid Strategy. We also requested a public consultation to take place on version 1 of the strategy, with action plans of schemes to also be included. This was the intention of then bringing version 2 of the strategy back to Cabinet for discussion and approval, and I am pleased to present this today. And I'd like to take this opportunity to thank the Herrywood Community Rail Partnership for their assistance and funding to help with the development of this important policy approach for Fenland. The second public consultation took place earlier in 2022, asking for views on the adopted strategy and the action plans. This survey received 64 full responses, which indicated that 89% supported the overall approach, with some suggestions to improve the strategy. These suggestions have been incorporated into version 2, which has a stronger focus on villages and missing footpaths, and has a revised layout with schemes more clearly laid out. It should also be noted that early survey work to develop version 1 received 734 responses, which was significantly shaped the strategy to date. The content of the document with regards to the strategy, policy and principles remain unchanged. The layout of the content has been, though, rearranged to reduce repetition with the document and improve clarity. The initial schemes within version 1 have been retained and the following schemes have been added. These were put forward through the public consultation and by elected members. And they are March Northern Industrial Link Road, segregated cycle path, which is a MAT scheme, repainting the zebra crossing on High Street, another MAT scheme, part of the MAT scheme, a just drop curb and tactile paving on Elwood Road, and 6 additional missing footpath locations. In respect of additional member comments, I would also draw your attention to the following matters for March and Whittlesea. There are no proposals to remove the High Street Boroughmore Road railings in March. The MATS project includes a crossing facility project on Station Road, Creek Road, and comments about retaining the railings in this location have been passed to the County Council in respect of that scheme. For clarification, page 31 of the strategy refers to the Pease Hill to Mills cycle route with a specific reference to the use of the grass verge. The faded and disappearing markings outside the fire station on Dartford Road have been raised with the County Council Highways. And the lifting and relaying and redesigning of the drop curb already in existence on the northern pavement at Elwyn Road has been added to this strategy and to MATS. Whittlesea, there is an off-road NCN 63 section from White Road, which is referred to as the dry weather route. It is not suitable for use in wet weather. It is also very difficult to cycle along as it is made of shingle. There is a wet route alternative along White Road itself that is in very poor condition. It is not in FDC's power to reroute the national cycling network, as this would be in the hands of Sustrans. However, options for this section of the route will be explored as part of the recommendations for the strategic routes. Progress since September 21, an application for 7.5 million over 4 years was submitted to the CPCA and is awaiting the outcome. £20,000 has been secured from the Capability Fund for initial feasibility work on the NCN 63. The missing section of footpath along Fenland Way in Chatteris is now included in the Wombe Farm planning application. 2 is now included in the Wombe Farm planning application. The procurement process for the remaining priority schemes has been agreed and will be funded with the remaining strategy budget. March schemes have progressed to the design phase through the March area transport strategy work, and funding for this is expected to be drawn down from the CPCA this month. Cabinet is asked to note the progress relating to the approved schemes and the March area transport strategy walking and cycling projects and the action of plans of schemes. To note the outcome of the public consultation on version 1 of the strategy and to adopt this latest version of the strategy as version 2. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Seaton. May I have a seconder, please? Councillor Mrs. French, thank you very much indeed. The item is now open for discussion. Councillor Mrs. French.
Thank you, Chairman. It is welcomed, but it's disappointing. There seems to be a mixture here. Who's responsible for what? County Council have got a legal responsibility to replace lines that are faded. I've been asking for over a year for white lines to be done outside, keep clear sign outside the fire station over 12 months ago. And the same with the zebra crossing in the High Street. Why all of a sudden it now jumps in to this document, Fen and Cycling Walking, when they've got a statutory duty to replace it? It's like the lining outside schools as well. It is disappointing to see we've got nothing in this paper with regard to the cycle paths from Pease Hill to Mill Hill using the grass field and not the road space. There's nothing in there. I attended a MATS meeting last week and officers were there as well. It was supposed to go into the MATS. When I spoke to officers there last week, they knew nothing about it. I really would like an explanation from officers why this has been totally missed out.
Thank you, Councillor Mrs. French. I might bring Councillor Seaton back if he's willing to speak at the moment about the particular points that Councillor Mrs. French has just raised.
Thank you, Chairman. Well, firstly, on the Pease Hill to Mill Road, that is mentioned on page 31 within this document. It is part of the policy of the walking, cycling and mobility strategy of Fen District Council. And it is, as I say, part of the policy going forward. So it is there. It will be part of the policy going forward, and so it is being covered. As far as the white lines outside of the fire station is concerned, that, as I said in my report, has been passed on to the County Council because it comes under highways and not under us. So, you know, there's not anything that part of this policy strategy document can address that. That has to go through to highways. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Just one point of clarification on that, if you don't mind, Councillor Seaton, and that concerns the use of the grass verge on the Isle of Ely Way between Pease Hill and Mill Hill. I think it's important not merely to state that we want to use the grass verge, but that it needs to be a segregated cycleway, not conjoined directly to the highway. And if that point could be made to relevant officers, I think that would be really helpful.
Yeah, I will. I'll make a note of that, Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Mrs. French.
Thank you, Leader. Yeah, I still would like clarification. As I said, I attended a MATS meeting last week and senior officers at County Council did not know anything about this. When the meeting was closed, an FDC officer was asked to stay behind and have a discussion with officers at County Council. So I still want clarification that the cycle path is included in any future, because it certainly is not in the MATS scheme. I can assure you it's not.
I just wonder if you have the updated version of today's report.
No.
I think that we did just discuss at the beginning of this agenda item that some additions have been made to the report, and I believe that that is one of the additions. So Councillor Seaton will confirm that. I hope.
That is correct, Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I ask when that report came out? The additions?
The additions were published online and emailed out to Cabinet members one day last week. I'm not quite sure which day.
Okay, thank you.
Are there any other comments from members? I'll just make one comment, if I may, about NCN 63 in the White Road area and the wet and dry routes. The situation is unsatisfactory. I think that we do need to have more discussion with Sustrans about how we move forwards. If the permanent solution is to have separate wet and dry routes for NCN 63, then so be it. That is going to be the answer. It's not an ideal answer. So if that matter could be taken up further with Sustrans, I think that would be welcomed by all. Councillor Seaton.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. As I said there, we are looking at options for that particular part of the route, and that will include obviously talking to Sustrans as well about it. So yes, we are on that case.
Thank you very much for that. Any other comments from any members? There are no further speakers, therefore the detailed recommendations are set out on page 13 of the agenda, and request members to note the progress made relating to the approved schemes and the March area transport strategy, walking and cycling projects, to note the outcome of the public consultation on version 1 of this strategy, to note the action plans of the schemes, and to review the proposed cycling, walking and mobility improvement strategy following the above, and adopt this as version 2 of the strategy. Is this agreed? Those in favour, please show. That's agreed unanimously. Thank you very much indeed, members. Agenda item 6 is the paper bidding for external funding and project management, which is to be found on pages 87 to 94 of the agenda pack. And I will propose this. This paper doesn't actually have to come to Cabinet. This is almost more an internal matter about management and the way in which projects are funded, bid for and project managed. However, given the importance of the subject and the fact that we are in a very different environment from the one we were in only 6 months ago, I felt it was really useful to bring this to Cabinet so that it comes into the public arena. We have to be more alert and aware of the difficulties, especially with capital projects, of funding them, of keeping to budget, and of managing them in an effective and efficient way so that we get outcomes that are good for our local communities. And the two diagrams which are shown in the schedules, Schedule 2 and 3, they identify the processes we will go through, both in terms of bidding for projects and also for project managing them. Now, the principles involved are very simple and straightforward. The documentation is merely a summary. There's a lot more detail behind this in what actually happens at officer level, but it is important that members of Cabinet are aware, and I believe members of the Council generally and the public are aware, that we recognise the different economic environment we're in, particularly with regard to capital projects, and that we therefore have to manage our processes, including the processes for bidding for projects, with those difficulties in mind. Are there any? Oh, first of all, may I have a seconder, please? Councillor Seaton, thank you very much indeed. The item is now open for discussion. Would anyone care to say anything or ask anything about this agenda item? No, there are no speakers. Therefore, the recommendation is at page 87 and requests that members note the changes in agreed processes as described. Is this agreed by members? All in agreement. Thank you very much indeed. Agenda item 7 is an update, a verbal update on Wisbech High Street from Councillor Seaton. Councillor Seaton, do you have any updates on 11 to 12 or 24 High Street, please?
Yes, thank you, Chairman. 24 High Street, there is a bid to the Brownfield Land Release Fund for £200,000, which has been submitted. We've also submitted a bid for £210,000 for a housing grant submitted to the CPCA. And we will shortly be signing a pre-construction service agreement with ETEC, the contractor, and construction will then start early next year. As far as 1112 High Street goes, ongoing discussion with a housing provider. There is constant cost consultant report received for a facade scheme, i.e. frontage wall, but further cost information is awaited in respect of party wall works. Offer of a freehold purchase from a company, due diligence required and concerns over financial appraisal. And there are two other developers and contractors approached informally have confirmed they have no interest as the scheme is unviable, even with £1 million grant and a £1 purchase price. No formal market testing undertaken to date. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Seaton. I am willing to open this matter up for debate, but I would warn members that we have to be very careful not to stray into areas which would be covered as exempt under the Local Government Act 1972 with regard to confidentiality, commercial confidentiality, or any matters relating to the finances of any third party, or for that matter, the council itself. So if members could be extremely careful about that, Councillor Tierney.
I hadn't even gestured that I was going to speak, but I do want to speak. Yeah, so it's good to see that there's some movement on this, of course. I've heard people say in the public domain that this is something that we should easily have done, should be completed by now. But the facts here that nobody will take it on with £1 million offered up front and a £1 purchase price must make anybody who's paying attention, must make it clear that there are real problems with the site, which make developers leery of it. And so we've got to keep pressing on and keep trying to do it. I worry a little bit about a frontage because of course it makes it look better and that matters. But then the problem is once that frontage is up, things can drop to the back of your mind, back even of an organisation's mind, as we've seen in other places where years pass by and nothing further ever happens. So I do hope we can get some movement, but broadly, I'd like to hear better news, but at least it's not a disaster. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Tierney. Any other comment from anyone? Councillor Seaton.
Just one point on that about the facade there. That will be dependent on the funding lottery grant being allowing us to actually do that and use some of their money. So we are waiting for that confirmation from them, should we need to go down that route.
Thank you. Councillor Ms Hoy.
Yeah, if we do go for that option, obviously that's a big if, but can we make sure as well that it goes all the way up rather than just sort of what's currently at 24, where it's just half of it, because people obviously do walk past and are able to look up and notice loads of bare sort of scaffolding and a mess, so it needs to be fairly high. Thank you.
Councillor
Yes,
Seaton.
Chair, totally agree. Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments from members? Thank you all for making sure we didn't stray into any exempt discussion there. Move on to agenda item 8, which is a constitutional amendment, which is on pages 95 to 98 of your agenda. And this is a report which seeks cabinet support for a proposed amendment to the standing orders of the Constitution. Now, I will propose this and give a brief explanation. And it's being seconded. Thank you very much indeed by Councillor Mrs French. So just briefly to explain this, under the current arrangements within the standing orders, the date for publication of the council agenda is the same date that any member must notify the chief executive as to their intention to table a motion. Now, currently, the time by which any member must do this is by 5 p.m. Clearly, any member can notify the chief executive of their intention to table a motion at any point prior to that, but that is the cut-off point. And the issue with this current arrangement is that whilst the legislation governing the publication of the agenda doesn't express a particular time by which this must be done, so far as can reasonably be achieved, member services always aim to publish within ordinary working hours. That is, we'd hope to get something live on the website by about 5:30 p.m. or 6 p.m. at the latest, and consider that this then meets with the statutory, member and public expectation that the information will be published by that date, that is 5 clear working days before the meeting. What this does mean, however, is that if there is no prior knowledge of the motion, and or if there are aspects of it which require some further discussion with the person who has proposed it, and or service leads for the relevant subject area may need to be consulted, it leaves very little time, really quite limited time, to be able to do this without then impacting on the availability of the remaining information for public consumption. Furthermore, it's a legal requirement that the wording of the motion is published with the agenda. And there is therefore not the option of just publishing the agenda and other material, simply putting motion in the agenda and then infilling the detail at a later date. Everything has to be finalized on the date of publication. The proposal is being made for changing the time, and this is aimed to enable officers and members just a little bit more time on the date of publication to resolve any last-minute discussions which may need to take place before the motion can go live on the agenda. So that's an explanation. The process is that it is for us as Cabinet, if we so wish, to recommend this to full council for agreement, because it is for full council to make the change to the constitution. Any comments or questions from any members? None? There are no speakers. Therefore, the recommendation of page 95 is to agree the proposed amendment to paragraph 10.2 of the standing orders, so that motions on notice are required to be submitted by 12 noon as opposed to 5 p.m. and to recommend that change to full council for approval. Those in favour, please show. That's unanimous. Thank you very much indeed. Agenda item 9 is the draft 6-month cabinet forward plan, which is on pages 99 to 100 of the public agenda pack. Are there any questions or comments? Councillor Mrs. French.
Thank you, Leader. Yes, I welcome what's on there, but I'm disappointed to see that there's no mention of civil parking enforcement. But I fully understand why, because at County Council, we are not progressing as quickly as we possibly could. It should have been an application supplied to government in October, and they've now put that off till April, which is deeply disappointing.
Thank you, and you are, of course, Councillor Mrs. French, entirely correct about that. It is disappointing that we don't have this on the cabinet forward plan. However, we can give no guarantee as to the date that it will be possible for us to progress further. We are entirely still in the hands of the County Council. Are there, oh, sorry, Councillor Tierney.
Thank you, Chairman. Just on that, I was going to say I'm surprised that County Council are dragging their feet a little bit on this, because given the administration there clearly absolutely hates cars, given on what's going on elsewhere, I would have thought this was right up their street. But I can only defer. I'm sure Councillor Finch is doing everything she can to push it forward. So hopefully we'll see some movement soon.
I will try to keep the cabinet away from easy party political point scoring. In this case, however, it would be extremely easy to point score. The new administration, which is now more than 1/3 of the way through its term of office, has been moving at a glacial pace on a whole host of issues, and this, unfortunately, is one of them. But they are the statutory authority as far as the roads are concerned. They are the ones who have to give approval for this, and we, unfortunately, have to move at their pace. It's highly regrettable. Any other comments or questions from any members? No, thank you. Then the forward plan is noted for information. In agenda item 10, there are no urgent items. Agenda item 11, we are being asked to approve the minutes at pages 101 to 104 of the confidential agenda pack as being a correct record of the part of the meeting which took place in exempt session on the 5th of September 2022. Now, I'm not proposing at this stage that we enter into exempt session for this item unless there are any substantive comments to make. May I therefore please, first of all, ask, are there any members who do not agree with the accuracy of the minutes associated with this agenda item? I see no objections to the proposal to approve the exempt minutes as a correct record, so we will take them as agreed. Thank you very much indeed, members. And this marks the end of the meeting, and I declare the meeting closed. The next meeting of the Cabinet is scheduled to take place on the 24th of October 2022. Thank you very much indeed.